So good afternoon. I am Ento Budiojo and welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. The panelists, I think you all know by now, most of you anyway, that's been with us for a while, but they are listed on mondaylive.org. Just as a reminder, the views expressed here are personal and not of any company or organization. Please do post comments and questions on the Zoom Q&A and chat so we can have a lively dialogue. And just a reminder, this slide deck and all of the links is also on mondaylive.org. So this is the last show of October where we've been focused on industry collaboration. We've had some really interesting conversations with a number of organizations, and we will continue that today. So our agenda today is just our normal news and trends chit chat, and then on the collaboration, we'll be talking to Jim Young, somebody that I think most of us on Monday Live have been collaborating with for quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on with him. And Realcomm and IBcon is on next week as well, so that'll be sort of a good perspective. But before that, as normal, hand it over to Ken's first up. What's going on, Ken?
Thanks, Anto. Well, we got our October issues online, collaboration, integration, and education, following your theme, and it's been a good interaction there. We're hard at working at getting the November issue together, which is creating clarity. And the group did some neat puns, and they think I should change my name to Clarity, which anything that would make anything I say clearer would help immensely. Very pleased that part of our creating clarity is going to be how we use the smarter stack and C4SV to increase, using those two to increase clarity. And Anto has offered to write us an article and give us some connections, and he gave me a sneak peek of what he's doing, some pretty neat stuff. And part of what we're building there is a library of the smarter stack, which I think is going to be very useful. So everyone can strut their stuff and show you ours, and I'll show you mine, you show you yours, and that kind of thinking. Of course, today's talk is going to be from Jim Young, Realcomm. We threw this LinkedIn post out about Realcomm. It generated about over 1,500 views and 12 comments. And then Scott's article on our October issue, it was about 4,700 views and about 50 interactions. So I think it's going to be exciting at the Smart Building Indicators Summit, Integrator Summit in Scottsdale. So looking forward to that. Again, daily stuff unfolds on my LinkedIn shares and Twitter's tweets. So keep posted on that. We put out a monthly magazine, but how the monthly magazine is coming together is sort of, you can follow on social media, and I'll also have some input into the direction of where we're going with our next issue. Back to you, Anto.
Thank you, Ken. Mark, over to you. Where are you?
Okay, so in our discussions on Monday Live and other discussions, I know Realcomm, I'll mention them as well, that we continue to have discussions about ESG. And I thought this was interesting. This is just out today, that the awareness level with respect to ESG among corporate directors is fairly high, according to this new survey from PwC. And kind of boiling down the numbers a little bit, that roughly 64% of folks say that they that it's ESG now is becoming part of their corporate or company strategy, which I think bodes well for the whole discussion in the C-suite. And however, though, out of that percentage there, that 25%, said that they have a good understanding of the ESG risk. Like anything else, I think that number was extremely low and kind of a little bit alarming for me. And so I think it's a really good article for people to go ahead and take a look at. And the fact that it is now becoming regular C-suite talk and discussions and parts of strategy. So back to you, Wilco.
Was this US or global? Do you know?
I can't recall. I can't recall. Okay. I think it was global. But don't hold me.
So, Mark, this is Steve. Friend of mine is a VP at a company called ISS Corporate Solutions, and they do ratings on ESG compliance for public companies. And in talking to him this weekend about what we're doing here and how we can better influence the E and ESG in particular, he said that one of the key things is that they do their ratings on are various metrics. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to know, which I think is the right question, what are the metrics that we would have companies use to gauge their environmental success? So think about carbon, reduction as a potential metric. If there was a good energy metric in terms of maybe energy per employee or per square foot or whatever you guys think would be the appropriate, whether something relative to indoor air quality, maybe the number of air changes, what kind of filtration they have, but specifically metrics are key to any kind of an ESG rating. And so to your point, and the point about the article is that corporate boards are taking ESG seriously, but in order to earn a rating, it needs to be tied to something tangible. And so I think it behooves us as a group to come up with what some of those metrics would be that they can then use to assess their success or lack thereof.
I just to add to your point, Steve, I couldn't agree more. And everything that I have looked at with respect to ESG, metrics is the key. And again, for people to believe the ESG story that a company or corporation is saying with respect to that. And there are organizations that are starting to try to identify those metrics, like you said. Moody's, for example, is looking at some stuff, and there's others. But to me, it's the key to all of this, whether or not this is going to be successful or not, is the metrics and the proofability of this.
And the coalition have had a little bit of discussions about this, but as being something that it could be something that the coalition works on. Exactly how, we don't know yet, but good point.
Okay, all right.
And over to John.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, so our interesting news item that North Carolina has mandated 70% cut in CO2 emissions from electricity by 2030. You can follow that article on Canary Media. I thought that was pretty interesting. The other thing was Verdantics. They're a industry analyst and information source. They have a freemium model, so some of the stuff you can get for free, but they put together a bunch of good stats on energy management strategies and facilities and where people are focusing and what type of results they're getting. So I think it's a good source of reading to take a look at what they publish there.
Great, thank you. So moving on, I don't have a slide, but I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes just talking about the C4SB, the coalition meeting that we had last week in DC, and just give a bit of a post-meeting report. Quite a few of the people on this call were there, so maybe you can chime in as well. Just as a reminder, sort of a key part of the coalition are these 5 pillars of action that are sort of the areas that we focused on: interoperability, analytics, specification, acquisition, meaning the acquisition of smart technologies as well as the acquisition of buildings themselves, and then lastly, workforce. So this is kind of the key things that we focused on. This is really what happened last week. We had quite an interesting briefing on what's going on in DC politics-wise. The comment really is that most of the action right now is on the Hill. I think we've all seen that play out on nightly news. So that's going to continue for probably another couple of months. And then once that's done, however it ends up, then the action will move over to the administration on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. So, and that's sort of in many ways more interesting for the coalition. The coalition, there's a lot of sort of feedback that the coalition is very well positioned on a subject that's very important, that's being discussed as part of a lot of what's going on in DC. We had a meeting with Building Action Coalition, which is a coalition of building related stuff, more broad, not really smart buildings, but all sort of building issues. That's very interesting, and we probably we'll work to get them on Monday Live at some point over the next few weeks. I think that could be an interesting show. We're starting to see projects, or the sort of the initiations of projects that's sort of being done using the principles of the coalition. So that was interesting to discuss that last week. There's a discussion on semantic operability with Harry Bergman, who was on this call on Monday Live last week. So that was really quite interesting. Steve did a report on cybersecurity spec. Do you want to just give a 30-second on that, Steve?
Sure. So I basically developed a comprehensive specification for cybersecurity for any OT system that can be added to Division 25, and it ties both to the NIST cybersecurity framework as well as it correlates to the Smarter Stack. So it's pretty good shape from a draft standpoint. Needs a little bit more work, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, that's great. I think everybody appreciated that. Thank you very much, Steve. A little bit of progress on the analytics. Jim, do you want to just chime in on that?
Yeah, John Petsy and I have been working. John created an original draft and my team has updated it. We expect a little more back and forth, and then hopefully we can circulate it to other competitors of ours in the analytics space for their comments as well. And so we're looking forward to that. John, any comments on that?
Yeah, it's in my court now, but we had Skyposium and then AAU World last week, but I plan on getting to that at the end of this week or on my long flight to Arizona. So it's in my court, but it's staring me in the face here.
Oh, good.
Okay. Great. And then we did have a discussion on the interoperability part of the spec, and we talked about the spec, I think, a couple of weeks back. The key part of it is to make all of these systems interoperable, secure and interoperable, which is why the focus on that. So we talked a little bit about how all of these pieces are going to come together. It's still kind of in the works, but I think the group felt that it's going in the right direction. And then Melissa did a wonderful update on the work that she's doing with DOE and Department of Labor, I think it is, on workforce development. So that's great. So made a lot of progress, and I think the group felt that it's actually making the right kind of progress last week. So that was really good. Thank you for all that were there. And the other thing that we sort of agreed on is that these are kind of the objectives for the next few months. Build a pipeline of C4SB enabled projects, complete an MVP of the Division 2525 by AHR. So that gives us 3 months to do that so that we can start to socialize it in Vegas. Melissa has an objective of filling 250 emerging technology apprenticeship program positions by May. That we think is doable. There's a lot of outreach that the coalition needs to do. And then out of the 5 pillars, the one that hasn't had as much attention is the acquisition pillar. So we have to figure out a plan to do that between now and AHR. So that's kind of what we did last week. Jim or Steve, do you want to anything else you want to add to that?
I think that's a good summary, Anto.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And so that wraps that up. Just one mention is next month our theme is clarity, as per what Ken was saying earlier. I think the notion behind that is we've gone through this very difficult year, 2021, and sort of questioning and also talking about some of the clarity that we now see in the industry, and maybe put that more of a question, but we'll see. That's for November. So should be some exciting conversations there. So with that, I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to bring in Jim Young. Jim, if you can brush your hair, as it were, and get ready to be on stage. And you know, in the topic of collaboration, I've known Jim Young for 20 years ish, and I think most of the people on the panel have a similar sort of relationship with Jim Young over the years. He runs Realcomm and now IBcon. And welcome to the show, Jim. It's great to see you. You're muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go. Good. So welcome to the show. First of all, do you want to give us an update on what you're doing and your expectation of next week, and
Sure.
just your mindset right now?
Yeah, so the mindset's the same it is the last week for the last 23 years. It's just stuff flying, past. Before I review what we're going to be doing next week in Scottsdale, hats off to you guys for doing this. I think keeping your community engaged despite a ridiculous 2020 and 2021 is important. Okay, so that's a compliment to you and all of you that do this week in and week out, because it's real easy to stall, and you have not. So that's good news. Again, before I get into the event, some macro observations. At this time of year, I'm on the phone nonstop with top solution providers, top real estate owners, operators, corporate clients. I was on a call that was supposed to be an hour with Microsoft on Friday. The call went 2 hours, talking about their new campus and what they're doing. So at this point, I mean, the program's in place, the conference is in place, so there's not much we can change. But it is confusing and insightful all at the same time to try to process these hundreds of conversations, right? And then I belong to different groups. So Mark was on a call last week with the Real Estate Cyber Consortium. And so from our vantage point, kind of an industry observation is, I think it's time to start corralling people so they don't do the same work. We don't have the luxury of doing the work twice. We should leverage each other ridiculously as much as we can. The other observation that has really been happening for 2, 3, maybe even 5 years is there seems to be two worlds, and you will all appreciate it. There's the world of all of you who know what you're talking about and have been doing this for years and understand how complicated it is, who do the work to get a building automated. And then because of all the capital on the market, too much capital, in my opinion, there continues to be a growing number of companies who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I get on the calls with these folks, and they don't know the difference between a corporate occupier tenant and a commercial owner landlord. And I said, it's something as basic as that. When they say, well, building is a building, I'm like, no. I said, you have to understand why people occupy, what their role is, what their motivation is, who's writing the checks. So that's about a number. That's only 2 out of probably another 10 observations I've made, or I could make in the last 60 days. And after the conference, we can come back on and just have an open discussion. We'll share what we're learning in our world and what you're sharing in yours. So that's
Just
just
if
a
I
little.
can just chime in there, I think that
Sure,
those are
yeah.
great points, and that's why we're focused on collaboration and Monday Live. And also it's sort of, Jim, it kind of reminds me of your motivation on the analytics front in terms of the specs that I'm not sure that you've actually shared with this group. Maybe you want to make comment on that, then that sort of substantiates basically what Jim Young's been saying.
You're saying Jim Lee's got.
Jim Lee, yeah,
Yeah.
Jim Lee.
No, I think it resonates completely with us. You know, one of the reasons that we want to promote specs for smarter buildings is there's just so much disinformation out there. And this is our effort to sort of, as I said, put district lines around what we do and at least have a common understanding of the different features and functions and the different categories that products fall into. And, you know, left to the market, you know, those 70 new entrants really love to blur the lines. So, you know, anyone that could put a meter on a screen was suddenly in the analytics business. So
This is the third time I've gone through this.
about-
This is the third time I've gone through this. This current cycle should have ended 4 to 5 years ago. The money printing machines keep going. The entrance of new companies who have no clue that what they're suggesting has been done 100 times in the last 20 years. The problem is the money is very powerful, and it takes people along with them, and it wastes a lot of time. And so anything we can do, you know, we are trying to tamp down the hype, and we're trying to, you know, not that we're not innovative and we don't want to be optimistic, but I see way too much time and energy being spent on things that people should not be spending their time on. And I see them going down a path that's going to take 2 to 3 years, and I want to say stop, but I know I can't. So in our overall ability to deliver the next generation of smart buildings, we got to figure this out collectively, because I think it's hurting us all, you know, the hype. So let me share my screen. Tell me when you see it.
Yep, it's coming up.
Okay. So I'm going to whip through these. This will kind of give you the generic where we are, and then, you know, if I can get through this in 3 to 4 minutes, then we can answer any questions. So Realcomm, you know, we had to come up with our plan in January before we knew what the summer and the fall. So by intent, we planned for a smaller event. Okay. I told my team, I didn't, even if we could, which I don't think we could have, I don't want to go back to a Nashville. It's too much, too big. We don't feel comfortable doing events of that kind of scale right now. So we chose a resort where we could control the facility a little bit, give people, because people are all over the, you know, the spectrum as far as how comfortable they feel being with people. There's people who dive into mosh pits and go to football games on the weekends, and there are people who still haven't left their apartments and houses. So we wanted to come up with a venue that was by intent. The painful part of that was we had to stop selling exhibitors 6 weeks ago. We have a very long list of very unhappy people that can't get into the event. And the other reason we did that is the vendors, the service providers, the solution providers are much more courageous. You guys are warriors, you're out there, but we did not want an event where, you know, 2/3 of the people in the room were all solution providers. We, in our history, have always tried to maintain a balance of 50-50. So in other words, 50% end user owners, operators, and then 50% solution providers, to give all the solution providers people to talk to. So we chose the Westin Kierland. It's a beautiful resort. Health and wellness was on our mind when we chose it. It's going to be nice this time of year. The golf course, we always have a golf tournament. They don't have to drive 30 minutes to a golf course. It's right there. We're going to own this part of the facility right here. First time ever, we're actually going to have, first time ever, we're going to have outdoor booths. Believe that. You know, I said, I love, and then you see, well, why do that? Well, skyscrapers in Manhattan, they're now building patios and rooftops more and more, because during COVID, we learned people sometimes like to get outside. I've been trying to do more outside events at Realcomm for years. There'll be an exhibit floor inside, and then people, it looks like they're doing like secondary booths out here where you can take a client to a lounge, sit out here, look at the golf course, have a drink, relax. Just like our owner operators are trying to enhance experiences inside malls and office buildings and mixed use projects, so do conferences. And we believe we need to take a lead and try to experiment with some of this stuff to see if it works. You know, I'll tell you in 2 weeks. This is the layout, tight. We have not a square inch left. I mean, when we stopped selling, you know, all the solution providers, and we had some other things we had to cram in here, very, very tight. This will be all the session rooms up here. We take 3 rooms, turn them into a general session by moving some walls, good use of space and technology. We got the patio out here. We got Lowell and Cushing down here. So it is going to, and the quality of folks coming is insane. I mean, it's going to be, like I said, smaller than Nashville, but the people that matter and the people who care and the people who've been pushing this are continuing to come. So that's the good news. Facility very clean. Weston known for their protocols even before COVID. You can see the ability to walk in and out of doors. Main lobby pristine. We're also going to hope you all take, you know, those of you who are coming, take advantage of outside spaces. We got little areas where people can take and create small groups and chat. They've got beautiful patios. This is about a minute from the exhibit floor. This is 2 minutes from the exhibit floor. Our protocol for, you know, making, not only are we trying to find a beautiful, nice space, but then we get into our COVID protocols, proof of vaccination or negative test. But being Realcomm and IBcon, we don't stop there. Why? We are going to have 7 or 8 different COVID technologies. We started learning this in Denver, where we were climbing. Some of you were on those calls where we climbed through air conditioning ducts and sat and looked at air inside elevators, saying, how could we make the air more clean? We had about 4 or 5 COVID techs in Denver. This year, we're going to swab the whole place. I know surface isn't as much of an issue anymore, but we're going to microbial swab all the high traffic surface areas. A new Aura Air. I just read a report at a Bio3 lab in Costa Mesa. This little guy right here can actually detect COVID and pull it out of the air. Crazy. Symptom sense, put your finger in there, let the thing take a picture of you. 3 different physical attributes, temperature, blood pressure, and heart rate. A little bit better able to tell if you're not feeling well. All the rooms will have bipolar ionization units in the rooms to bring cleaner air. And of course, if we find COVID, we're going to send our UVC robot to zap it. We are actually going to have a lab put together by Car Properties, a very innovative firm out of DC. They've been working tirelessly and on all the IAQ issues. So they're literally going to have a lab that are all part of the smart building conversation. Golf course wellness day on Sunday. So if you can get in early, we got golf, we got all sorts of other events planned. People don't seem to be taking us up on it. I always wanted to get people in early and let them, you know, beat yourself up, play a game of basketball, pickleball, yoga, golf. The golf tournament, ironically, has as many attendees as we did in Nashville, which I have no idea why golf is so popular. I have a funny feeling it's an excuse to get the heck out of the house. We're also going to have a little surf the competition exhibition at our opening session. There's a wave pool here. So we're going to have some fun, and a couple of the guys have agreed to get out there and they won't make fools of themselves because they're good surfers. So if you know anybody who can handle a board, let me know. We want to get them involved in that. The other reason we chose resort, because there's a Macerich Mall right next to it. So if people want to go out after at night, you know, take clients, prospects, friends. Tons of restaurants, 3-minute walk from the hotel, indoor, outdoor dining, something for everybody. That's what we were trying to do. We wanted to give people options. This is the program starting on Sunday with the wellness. Then we've got the cyber forum in the morning, lunch, and then our CIO Smart Building Integrator Summit, the boot camp, higher ed and PM. The higher ed and PM have been scaled way back. Higher ed's not traveling this year. Property managers, BOMA and IFMA just had their events, so it was too close. But we'll pick back up with them next year. Welcome reception, and then we have a private event. That's the general session. Opening session starts on Tuesday morning. Crazy great session. Lots of big owner operators, corporate real estate, commercial real estate. Then going into sessions. Digi Awards that evening. I'm hoping all of you attend because I think somebody on this call is going to get a nice award. I can't tell you who, but somebody is. And then an exhibit hall networking reception. Then we do the same. We do the Smart Building Showcase, got about 15, 16 of the best buildings around the world. We're going to showcase, let people talk about, and then lunch, and then we wrap around 2, 3 o'clock. We're going to bring some of the hybrid technologies into the event. We did 4 hybrid events in the last 12 months. We did our big one last year. Realcomm was a hybrid. We built a studio in Denver. That's what you're looking at here, played around with all sorts of things, because the new workplace, somebody mentioned GSA, I think earlier, the new workplace is going to be hybrid. There's not a doubt in my mind. This was Denver, the studio. We then rented a studio in LA to continue to learn. And then this was still LA. Then we kept scaling it down. We got this one in Austin. And then last 2 weeks ago, we did our final hybrid before the event in New York City. And what we did with bringing people in and out, and we had 5 big screens to work with. That guy on the stage there says he's never seen anything like this. I said, come on, you're Manhattan. You got to be on the cutting edge. He says, no. He says, people usually just come in and throw PowerPoints up. So we're going to bring some of that lesson to the Realcomm Live, which we always have had in the exhibit floor. I think a couple of you are speaking on it, but we're going to be doing that, as well as this is going to be the extent that we're going to do hybrid for this event. It's mostly an on-site event, but on our website, we will be streaming live from Realcomm Live nonstop Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we're playing around with a new idea that any of our exhibitors who are on the floor at the conference, you go up to our website, you'll see this sheet on the right, and you will see a little button over here that says talk to the team. You click that, and you are either going to go via Teams or Zoom right into the exhibit floor, where they'll have a laptop in their booth, and you can talk to the exhibitors live via video conferencing. So hybrid probably has about 20 different definitions. So we just keep playing with different types. So as we do events in the future, we can pick and choose what kind of hybrid functionality we're looking for. That's the high level, 50 sessions, 70 exhibitors, but jam-packed, no doubt jam-packed. So did that answer your basic questions, Anto?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of innovation there. You know, through COVID, you know, I spent 10 years organizing conferences, and I thought about you a lot, Jim.
Yeah. So one of the innovations, I didn't show this because the slide didn't look pretty, but yeah, it has been hell for those of us trying to put on events, no doubt. But we wanted to keep the conversation going. And Sarah, one of our folks, can't make it. She just had a little baby, and she can't leave town. So we're bringing her in as virtual Sarah, and she'll be at the information desk at registration. She will be on a cart. So as she's needed in other places, we will move Sarah around, and she will be there able to answer people's questions with texts and, you know, where's this session? So she's going to be available. So yeah, we keep experimenting. We made a decision February, March of 2020. We were not going to let COVID define us. We were going to continue to innovate. It's been hard, but it's also been fun, and we've learned a lot.
Fantastic. Thoughts from the group?
Questions, yeah.
So Jim, it's Mark. Hey, how you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So a preview in Jim Young style this time is this. The top 3 things you feel are the most important things you want people to get out of Realcomm IBcon as far as content.
Yeah, only somebody like you could ask a question like that.
Put you on the spot.
No, it's a thoughtful question. I would like to tell you differently, but during COVID, only the smartest, most innovative end users on both the commercial and the corporate side continued. Many people put hand sanitizer in the lobby and called it a day. So getting the engine started again to get the built environment engaged. Now, those smart ones kept going, did remote management, kept all you folks busy, you know, so they could watch their buildings remotely during COVID. But I don't know if you all read the story, but we about 4 weeks ago published a story that despite COVID and the buildings only being 6% utilized in Manhattan, the energy bills stayed the same. Right. And so here it is. We had empty buildings and the energy bills stay the same. So you want to talk about ESG? I'm like, are we going to really get serious about ESG this time? The E in ESG? Or are we going to talk about it again, throw a lot of money out there, create a lot of hype, and then not get anything done? Right. So I think what we all collectively have to do is focus on the people who get it. unfortunately, we're going to have to rebuild the momentum of the people, and not the people who are raising money and coming up with, single function applications on their phones. I don't want to give much time to those people because they don't know the business. They don't know buildings. They had a cool looking dashboard on a phone, got 5 million. And until they want to learn from people like you, I'm not going to spend too much time with them because they don't know what they're doing. Right. So I think we collectively got to be really smart. Anto's got it right. We got to collaborate. Folks who run different groups, we got to talk more. Can't waste time. We got to accelerate. So we don't run out of fuel. I'm hopeful that because the technology has advanced so much between IoT and 5G coming and people starting to understand the value proposition of putting a network into a building, I think that there's a market out there and there's people ready, but we can't afford them to get misdirected or told fake news. So I think collectively, the more we keep organized, hone in on the people that are ready, make sure their projects are successful. We were on with Richard Newberry this morning, and he was talking about supply chain issues. Chips that were 57 cents are now $17, and it's a 26-week wait time. Okay, that's not good. Okay, and we're going to be talking about that in the opening session. So again, it's collaboration, communications between those of us who've spent our careers, bringing the new generation up, but making sure they get educated. And that's another thing I'm noticing at a macro perspective is we need more young people. All of us have been doing this for a while. Our hair's getting a little grayer. We gotta make, I don't know what it's gonna take to get the Xers, the millennials, the Zs. Millennials, I'm a little worried about. There's a big gap there where they just don't want to do any of this kind of stuff. But collectively, as an industry, we have got to find the people who want to do this, wrap our arms around them, mentor them, teach them, get them. I've been spending a time on phone calls with people. Some people might even consider them our competitors, but Realcomm's competitors. But I didn't want them to fail, so I'm helping them build their conferences better because they were headed off a cliff. So if we really care about our careers in this industry, we're all going to have to spend some extra time with the new generation helping, because there's so much knowledge on this screen. I would hate to see it lost, right? So the short answer, Mark, is COVID did, for the market at large, the people who were just getting into this, did put a little damper on the smart building conversation. The people who were there before are still going strong, but we're all going to collectively have to reach out again, get the ball started, and then make sure they get the right information.
Jim, this is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Don't know if you had a chance to hear the comments that I shared with Mark earlier this on the call.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's all about trying to put the E into ESG in some kind of meaningful way. And I have just a golfing colleague of mine is involved in a company here in Richmond called ISS Corporate Solutions. And what they do is they do ESG ratings for public companies. All the public companies have some sort of an ESG rating. And in talking to him about what I do and what we all on this call do, he's very, very interested in trying to understand how to better score the entire ESG, but in particular E, because there aren't good metrics. So there's an opportunity. He would be very open to having a conversation with you or any of us here to try to make some progress in this area, because I think it would behoove the industry as a whole if we could nail down some meaningful metrics, whether it's carbon dioxide reductions or a certain energy per square foot or whatever we think is going to be meaningful. Then his firm is ones who sell these ratings to these corporate boards, because that goes into what pension funds and people who want to invest in these companies, they make decisions today on what companies they're going to invest on based on their ESG ratings.
Yep.
So just circumstantial that he happens to be here right in Richmond and this is what he does for a living. I think we should
would love to get him. Yeah, would absolutely. Yeah. There's a couple organizations who purport to do that, but the jury's still out. So I would love to understand what he does in context with the other ones. But yeah, get him involved in the conversation.
Okay, all right. I
Hey,
will do that.
Hey,
Steve, I'd like-
Steve,
Steve,
why
I'd
don't
like
you
to
and
be
I,
part of that too, if you take that on.
Yeah, well,
It's near
and,
dear
and,
to my
and
heart.
yeah, well, and just to kind of lay on top of Steve and what Gina just said, I mean, the reason that we decided to go deep on the intelligent buildings part of real estate technology 20 years ago was I was in Manhattan and I looked up in the air and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning and I looked up and all the lights were on.
Hmm.
And I'm not kidding. I mean, a metaphorical, epiphany. I just said, this is ridiculous, and then I became known for turn the lights off, right? Kind of guy, I like the buildings, but I don't like wasting energy. As I mentioned earlier, I think Realcomm IBcon has gone through 2, maybe 3 cycles of this E thing, and the other 2 have failed, frankly. I mean, we've been through this. We had sustainability of directors. We used to have a sustainability event at Realcomm and IBcon. They started all getting fired because once it wasn't sexy again, then they got fired and then moved on to the next thing. So I'm hoping ESG is not just more fluff and more talk,
Hmm.
and then we actually get to the bottom of it this time.
Mhm.
And here's the main conflict though. If we're gonna have an honest ESG conversation, we got to add the 2-hour commute into the conversation, because all those building owners want their folks back to Chicago, New York, LA, back in these buildings, right? For good reasons. But that 2-hour commute and all of the petroleum products that involve that commute means that the corporate world or people are going to have to start going full circle to a distributed employee database, right? Less big corporate headquarters and more little offices. So right now, the commercial and corporate real estate, there's 2 main things. The commercial guys are wondering, how long are their tenants going to keep paying their bills? Okay, because the buildings have been empty, the tenants kept paying their rent, but they're worried about the upcoming lease expirations. Everybody's concerned that when these leases start to come up for renewal, it's going to be a big compression on the amount of space that they're going to take. That could cause a problem for the market. And on the corporate side, the occupier side, the tenant side, they're trying to figure out, do we really need millions of square feet? I mean, I got my programmers working from, islands and valley. I've got my marketing people. I don't know if you guys saw the news, but 4 million people quit their jobs in August. Okay. And of those people not quitting, others are saying, I'm not going back to the old lifestyle. So there's still a lot to be determined on who goes back to work, how, and then how they use their building. So we need to all be prepared for a little confusion in the marketplace for at least the next 12, 18 months.
Just to hit on some of the comments that people have posted, David is asking about Kaba. We're actually we'll actually be part of the IBC, the next IBC meeting, I think in November. We'll be talking about the coalition and the smarter stack, not so much on IFMA and BOMA, although there is some conversation between the coalition and BOMA. So that's that answer. Terry Oliver made an interesting comment, sort of commenting on the conversation we're having, and his sort of final 3 words is that all of this is important, but people need to buy stuff. All right. So do you get a sense, Jim, that I know people are trying to figure out how we're going to leave the pandemic. Are people actually spending money at this time, or are people still just planning and thinking and figuring?
Are you talking about real estate people need to spend money, consumers? Who is he talking about?
Well, in this context, let's say talking about smart building technology.
Yeah, that's what I said. They have some big fundamental questions they're trying to sort out, right? Big questions. Are my tenants going to keep paying their rent? Or when the leases come due, are they going to compress their space, therefore leaving me with a half-empty building? So that's the number one thing that the commercial folks are focusing on, is where do they stand right now with vacancy, occupancy, of how many people are in the buildings actually using the buildings, the most important metric. And then right behind that is going to be, are they going to renew their leases at the same volume? Okay. That will determine the trajectory of supply and demand. On the tenant side, the people who rent the space, they're waiting for their leases to come due. And while they're waiting for their leases to come due, they're saying, do we need as much? Do we need as much in this location? Should we split it up? How much are we going to allow from home, mobile, other locations? So the short answer is, at the moment, I talk to a lot of your folks, you know, solution providers, integrators, and people are saying they had one of the best years ever. I think Tritium said they had one of the best years ever. So people are buying things, and there is, and I think the uptick on that was for things we talked about, the remote management, you know, and being able to see the buildings from, you know, long distances. So I don't know if all these things, what they're going to balance out with as far as the supply and the demand. So the short answer is yes, they're buying stuff. The velocity, I don't have any idea, you know. And
Jim, on this buying thing, all right, so let me throw another Mark question at you, is this: whose responsibility, in your opinion, is it to make these, let's just say, the office space COVID friendly, a COVID, you know, whatever you want to call it? Is it the owner, the real estate owner, or is it the tenant?
Great question. So that, unfortunately, that's not an easy answer. So
I know,
let me peel back the onion. Just like the battle we've been all fighting for 20 years, who makes the decisions on the smart building? Is it the facilities people? Is it the IT person? You know, who drives the, and again, depends on which building. Is it a corporate headquarters in Silicon Valley or a commercial multi-tenant building in New York City? The answer is different, okay? So prior to COVID, IT was getting more and more and more involved in any building, smart building discussion, okay? So we were seeing a combination of facilities and IT making the decision. Sometimes IT would take a lead, sometimes it was facility. Now, coming out of the pandemic, we have some new issues. Number one, COVID, okay? What part is COVID going to play, and COVID tech going to play inside the smart building conversation, okay? It should, but interestingly enough, the COVID tech guys would say there doesn't seem to be a lot of buy-in. People are hoping COVID goes away and never comes back. I believe indoor air quality has been an issue for 25 years, should be an issue, and shouldn't go away after COVID is done, okay? But we'll see. The other thing that becomes part of the smart building conversation, which not many people on this call are gonna have any experience with, is the occupant experience, immersive experiences, teleportation into conference rooms, bringing in people remotely into big LED walls, you know, making the remote workers feel like they're part of the corporate culture. Some people will put that into the smart building, you know, conversation, but it's more front end and less back end. Now, the way this group can become part of that conversation is the temperature of the rooms, the security of the rooms, you know, being able to go, let's go back to those applications where tenants had the control of the building in their hand, get me in the door, get me up the elevator. So I would suggest that, you know, the things they're going to buy are going to be different. Okay, I mean, a lot of the same that you all have been working with for your entire careers, but there's going to be some new opportunities. You know, but the definition of smart buildings is changing under our nose. Okay, and for about 3 to 5 years, we've been pushing. And remember, think about when I yell this to a commercial real estate guy: smaller and smarter is in, big and dumb is out. They like to lease lots of space, big malls, big, you know, but little by little, they're understanding, they're seeing headlines from people other than us. The buildings that will survive are going to be smaller, more, just like our exhibit floor, right? You know, Nashville was big and dumb, you know, and then this one, we had to really think about every square inch we used. I think that's going to be a trend that's going to continue. And I think that COVID tech has a role, immersive experience has a role, and it all now gets bundled into this smart building conversation.
We talk about smarter buildings as well, rather than smart buildings, so that aligns with that. But Gina, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to address a few topics. So, like Jim, I agree. IAQ, whether or not it's COVID, it should always be an issue. But to Mark's question about where is the responsibility lie with that? Is it with the renter, the tenant, or is it with the building owner? It's going to be who's got the majority of that risk, and that's going to be the building owner. So ultimately, if you're someone who's in a building, you get sick, you're going to go right to who the employer is, but then the insurance company's going to turn around and they're going to go after the building owner. So that's ultimately who's going to be responsible for making sure that the indoor air quality in that building is safe. The other
Yeah,
thing
I'm
is,
hearing the opposite, Gina. What I'm hearing from the building owners is the smart ones, one of the leading edge, are doing exactly that. But they're saying, okay, if a major Fortune 100 tenant takes 3 floors in my office building, I just got to really worry about the lobby and getting them up the elevator. But once they're inside that space, it's the tenant's responsibility.
Really?
And the tenant, you know, if they're very progressive and very far leaning, will take more ownership of what happens inside that space.
well, who owns the equipment that's sending the, you know, who's going to,
Yeah,
the HVAC, all that stuff, that's the equipment. So I would say you can do that all you want, but knowing insurance companies, they're going to go where the deepest pockets are. And the deepest pockets usually going to be the ones that building.
I think the shortest answer is both, would be my, you know,
Yeah,
it can slide on a scale depending upon the circumstance, but I think at the end of the day, they're both responsible.
I don't disagree with you on that one. I would say that it's definitely both of them. Well, the other thing I was going to ask you about, and I hope that this is addressed some type of Realcomm, and you were talking about the changing, buildings are getting smaller, right? And people want to stay at home and all that. And I definitely agree. I think there's going to be a lot of repurposing of these buildings. But one of the things that I'm most interested in, and I think Melissa Botwell actually is doing a survey or a study on this, is the changing demographics and how that's going to impact. So, you know, I think you're going to see some of the downtown, more urban areas are going to start losing out. People are going to be moving to less expensive areas. And what kind of impact is that going to have to some of these smaller mid-market cities? I mean, are they going to be able to handle that? So.
Well, the title of the opening slide in the opening general session, I can't share it with you because it's a secret and I'd have to kill all you. But the theme is 6 colliding global paradigm shifts all happening at the same time. Okay, so for example, you know, technology, we know how that's evolving. Biology, COVID, pandemics, we know how that's evolving, right? Well, the problem is one of those by themselves is a big problem, or a lot of disruption. Imagine 6, okay? So the last bullet is demographics, okay? And that's where your population shifts. People got accustomed to living and working a certain way during COVID that I think goes to their soul. And it has less to do with COVID and more to do with commutes and the expense of going into a building. So we are seeing a migration this minute, leaving big cities, going past the suburbs, all the way out to the rural areas. The problem is the migration's taking, but there are also people moving back into cities, okay? So we can't totally throw the cities, I don't think cities go away, but I do think it's going to be significantly different. And I don't think we have enough data yet to see where this all flushes out, but people are on the move. But that August jobs report though, 4 million people just quit. They're not even moving. They're just saying, I got a 1-family income now. My wife's or a husband's staying home and watching the kids, keeping an eye on school. We're paring things down. It could be years before we really see how this totally unfolds. But it is happening. There's lots going on.
Hey, Jim, I'm just going to say I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Thank you. I've got to leave 5 minutes early, but
Okay.
I'll see you guys in Phoenix.
Okay, great to see you. Thanks for everything, Bill. So yeah, I mean, my closing thoughts just would be smart buildings are more important than they've ever been. We've added a few more things on top of them now, experience and COVID and health and wellness and energy, which has come and gone. But it's going to take all of us just continue to put our solutions in front, but mostly the benefits, not the hows, but the whys, why we need to do this. And I think we're all going to have to get better at finance, meaning we have to understand the financial sheets of the corporate tenants, of the commercial landlords, to see where their pain points are, and figure out a way to align our solutions with their pain points. I think that's critical.
We have time for another question. Anybody want to chime in on anything?
Yeah, so Jim, for the major cities, from a political standpoint, I don't know if this is being covered in your session next week or it's being talked about, but the politics of public safety and public health. So the build, not just what's in the building, but it's around the building. You know, when folks like Walgreens pull stores out of downtown San Francisco, and you have hundreds of thousands of homeless in public areas, and people are worried about walking from building A to building B, I gotta believe that's affecting some of the migration. And unless people start to wake up and take some of this stuff seriously, you know, we sort of assume that it's safe to be in downtown wherever, right? And that's just not true anymore.
No,
So
no.
has that been a conversation at all?
Well, you know, it's interesting because on my 6 paradigm shifts, I had the 6 bullets and all the speakers that we've been talking about, we changed the word politics to globalization because we didn't want to get political at the conference. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
So now the word politics is hiding inside globalization. I agree with you 3000%. Based on the temperature on that stage in the morning, I'll make the decision how much we should go on. I want to go there. I want to have this conversation because it is amazing when you talk to people, they just don't even acknowledge the fact that when COVID's done, the murder rate and the homelessness is right behind it.
Yeah,
And I mean, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, LA, Minneapolis. I mean, this list goes on and on. I've got, you know, people in our community who you know, live in Minnesota and said that Minneapolis is not a good place anymore.
which is crazy. I mean, it's just hard to conceive that that's the case.
Well, and the solution is what? Gunshot detection in my IoT stack? I mean, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the technology, but that's not the world I want to live in, right?
Right.
So I suspect we've always been a pretty transparent organization and talk about the things nobody wants to talk about. So I have a sneaky suspicion this conversation will make its way into one of the segments in the opening session.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
because I think it's healthy. I do too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Jim, on the sort of US versus international trends?
Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, on the smart building standpoint, I think we're getting our clocks cleaned by China. Okay. I mean, the base technologies, the entrance into 5G. If you just go watch a Huawei or a Alibaba Smart City webinar, they're out there on the web. You can go, the topics they're talking about are 3 levels above ours. They're talking about enterprise integration. And now whether or not they can all pull it off, 98% of every building in China is still old and bad. But there's some forces now coming out of the, you know, the Huawei Alibaba camp. Tencent, I might even throw in there. And then you got all the secondaries, the Sense Times, the Hikvisions. The problem is they're taking, in fact, I'm thinking about writing a white paper on this, the various stages of automation, starting with mainframes all the way through today. And I believe the next level of automation is human and societal automation, where you carry around a cell phone and everything you do is monitored, tracked, analyzed, forecasted. Both of my daughters have written white papers on China's social credit scoring system. One back in 2019, so going on 2+ years now. She nailed all of the big companies that were going for this societal automation strategy, which PS involves smart buildings, smart cities, smart districts. And the problem, even though they're ahead of us technology, I think they're going to go because of their political structure. They're going for surveillance and monitoring, not clean air and experience, right? And so I unfortunately believe they are, if not already, going to pass us on the technology. But I am not a fan of what they're going to do with it. And so there's a great article out there by Eric Schmidt, the former chairman of Google. Just look up Eric Schmidt, technical bifurcation. He has got about 25, 30 people together, all notable technology names, big company names. And they disappeared into their room for a couple months and they wrote this paper. And he believes there's a fairly good chance, and this we are going to talk about in the opening session, global technical bifurcation, meaning if you have a real estate portfolio with buildings in New York and Beijing and Shanghai, what do? I already have seen some of this. I've seen people 2 years ago get onto airplanes and start building out 2 separate networks, the Asian network, the Chinese network, and the West, because they can't have those 2 enterprises talk. I mean, I've had a number of situations now with the new cybersecurity and terrorism laws in China. You have a smart building in Shanghai and you've got servers. Any whiff that you're a bad guy, they can say whenever they want. They come in, they take all your servers, they confiscate them. So that's a conference in its own, Anto. And I think, you know, for those who are small owners and operators of real estate, they'll never touch them. But for those mid-sized and those multinationals, it's a problem they are dealing with and have been dealing with for about 2 years now.
Oh, great. That was some really great perspective, Jim. Really appreciate you being here. And I think quite a number of us will see you next week in Scottsdale. And we'll
and thank you for that support. And you, the name of your theme, collaborate, it's always been important. If you look at what we're up against, whether it's lack of productivity in a given segment of the workforce or technology. I mean, I was on the phone with somebody this morning and you talk about Asia and technology competitiveness. I asked him the question, do you think China withholding parts from us is actually a part of their strategy to keep us one hand behind the back as we all strive to innovate? And he says, absolutely. He believed absolutely that it wasn't just normal supply chain issues, that some of it could have actually been calculated. I don't know that, I'm not saying that, but it's certainly a conversation that needs to be on the table. So if you look at the role the West has played in technology and, you know, politics globally for 100 years, there's big changes coming. And we don't have enough of us. So the idea of competing is gone. I don't even care if you're violent competitors. We need to collaborate every minute of every day. We got to push for our kids going back into math and science. We got to get the universities squared away with what they focus on. We need some engineers again, you know, and it's been too long that we focus on other stuff. And Realcomm used to raise money for math and science. We stopped because it got too hard. But we gotta regain that focus, kind of an all hands on deck.
All right, wonderful. Let's bring this to a wrap. Thank you again for everybody and all the attendees for being here and all the questions, and video will be up sometime tomorrow. See you in either in Scottsdale next week or on Monday Live next week. I'm going to be doing Monday Live from Realcomm on the Monday.
We have one of the stage, if we have the stage set up with the LED wall, you can go right from there. If it's
we'll see. We'll see. We'll see next week. Great.
Yes, we will.
All right. Great, Jim. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you,
See you.
Jim.
Y'all later.
Good.
Bye.